That's kind of a fascinating thing, the desiring God connection, because I remember a Piper tweet from maybe a decade ago hailing the blessings of pluralism in Minneapolis, and now they've invaded a church.
Steadfastcigars.com. Use promo code Covenant10 for 10% off your order.
Pastor George and Pastor James here for Covenant Matters, and we're going to talk about a current event, the thing that's in the news, everything from what's going on in Minnesota to churches now being disrupted. But before we do that, and because I've been waiting to smoke this cigar, tell me, James, if you could see that label. I don't know how if it's coming across.
Yeah, not really.
Not really. I wonder if it'll come off in the video. Anyway, it says, "We are all Charlie. God Family Country." It's a great blend from Steadfast Cigars, and so I always save my Steadfast cigars for when I record these episodes. Relevant probably to our conversation today. Yeah. And so, fresh off the news, of course, we know what's going on with ICE around the country. As a matter of fact, right outside of the church I go to, it's right in like this downtown area of Tallahassee. You can see the Capitol building, and in giant letters spray painted on the wall of something, it says F. Of course, it says the word ICE, and that's what we walk in and out of church reading. And it's a reminder of what's going on in the world as we go into another world to worship as we come to gather as the kingdom of God, and that's kind of what happened this past week. A Minnesota church, so I think in Minneapolis, called Cities Church, had a protest within their building, I believe during worship, James. It's a fascinating church. Supposedly one of the pastors works for ICE. I have not had that confirmed.
I think I got that. He used to work for DHS.
Oh.
He used to work for
DHS. There you go. Another interesting thing, at least this is what it says on the internet, is Desiring God President and CEO Marshall Segal, or Siegel, I don't know how to say that, goes there, as well as executive editor David Mathis. And, that's kind of a fascinating thing, the Desiring God connection, because I remember a Piper tweet from maybe a decade ago hailing the blessings of pluralism in Minneapolis, and now they've invaded a church. And perhaps there were so many things disturbing about this to me, but one of them was Don Lemon from CNN, like platforming with the pastor there about this, like as if it's freedom of speech. And this is a time for worship. This is the Lord's Day, and this is what they do, and it definitely intersects the church and state, Christian and culture conversation, and even maybe Christian nationalist conversation. So what are some introductory thoughts as I've kind of vomited it all up there, James?
Well, one thing I wanted to add is I believe that Joe Rigney, formerly of Bethlehem, now up there in Moscow, was one of the founding pastors of this church.
Did not know that.
Yep.
Has he had a take on this yet? Has he?
Yeah, I haven't read it yet, but he wrote an article for World on what happened here.
Good on World for having Rigney on, honestly.
Yep.
I apparently I appeared on World. I don't know if you saw that interview.
I saw that. Yeah. About the
I was getting all kinds. Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
let's
my
not
thought
digress.
Is, this highlights the fact that the church militant as an institution in the world depends upon peaceful external conditions to do its work. It just does.
Wow, that's so well said.
In the world depends upon peaceful external conditions to work. And in that sense, for the ordinary work of the church to take place, it requires the support of the civil magistrate. And of course, people like to point out to the early church or the church in the times of persecution. But the truth is, anytime you pick up one of those scenarios, you will find a local magistrate who will turn a blind eye to the church's operation, or maybe convert and lean some support. But one way or another, in a scenario where the magistrate seeks positively the destruction of the church in that particular region will disappear. And of course, the most extreme example of this would be in the Middle East, where you have the Muslim conquests. But too often in America, we assume that the church doesn't need any support from the state, when that is actually riding on the assumption that our present social arrangement will continue, kind of our little c constitution. And one aspect of our little c constitution is whatever political disagreements you have, you do not interrupt church services. And we're starting to see that social contract break down, which requires the magistrate to come in and reestablish order. And if he doesn't, the church will continue to be interrupted, molested, and disturbed. And that's entirely unacceptable.
There's so many things I want to key in on there. So I want to ask, just remember this, because in my old brain, I forget things, but I want to ask you like the confessional grounding of this. And but before we get to that, when you said how the church can turn a blind, or not the church, the state often turns a blind eye to these things. You know, this goes back to something that you talk about quite a bit about promotion, the government promoting the true religion. And, you know, the confusion around that I see, and really the attacks around it, the misrepresentations and characterizations around it, as if, you know, that means the promotion of the true religion means, you know, the death penalty when things happen. And that's not what you're saying. So like the turn, well, I don't think that's what you're saying in all cases, but the turning of the okay, you know, like the government turning of a blind eye is the opposite of promotion, you know, and the government upholding its rights and requirements under what you're saying is promotion. It's simply creating an environment such that, like you said, the church would be unmolested. That in itself is promotion.
I make this point in my book that promotion is, when I say promotion, I'm primarily talking about the end, not the means. Okay?
Talk about that. Say that.
Whatever the activities of the government may be, those activities need to be means that achieve the end that the kingdom of God is promoted. Okay? So there are some, particularly in kind of the particularist Baptist tradition, who say they agree, the government must promote true religion, but do that negatively, not positively. Okay? So in other words, it shouldn't go out there and like positively push something, but it should create a space where the church can do its work. Right? So I was reading in, doing the McShane Bible reading program, got to Acts 19. What happens in Acts 19? God promises Paul, hey, I'm going to protect you. But the Jews get whipped up, and the Pharisees want to go and persecute Paul, and they go before the Roman proconsul, and they say, hey, listen, Paul is doing all of this stuff that's, you know, against Jewish religion. And the Roman proconsul says, what does it have to do with me? This is your own matter. Don't bring this matter to me. And then they go, and in front of the Roman proconsul, they beat the head of the synagogue in front of the tribunal. And it says that the proconsul just turns his head away and allows it to happen. So what is he doing there? Maybe not intentionally, but functionally, he's promoting true religion negatively by not doing anything in that case. So anyway, point being, there's lots of different means that the government can deploy to ensure true religion is promoted, some positive, some negative, and which one you use depends on your particular situation.
Well, let me add something to this. You can tell me if you disagree with it. So the negative promotion, or the negation, is actually promoting the government's true religion, the government's religion. So in not promote, so in this case, the government not stepping in, and I assume they called 911. I mean, I can't imagine a church not calling the government, and I don't see that anything really took place. It was actually allowing the promotion of the religion of that government, which is wokeism, protest, disorder, scandal, and everything else. I mean, that's their prevailing religion there, honestly.
Yeah,
destruction.
If you do absolutely nothing at all fitted to the end of promoting true religion, then something is still going to get promoted, and it's just not going to be the right thing.
Right, because it's your priorities. It's what is the government's priority in that moment. That's their prevailing, dare I say, worldview. I forget who I had on once that said we don't like the word worldview anymore. I don't know. I find it useful. And a worldview is based on
You're a boomer,
religion.
You wouldn't like it.
I Boomer. I'm a Gen X, man. I don't care.
I know.
Say what you want. But let's go to those confessional groundings of what you've said. So not only is this like, this isn't just James's opinion or political, philosophy or theory. This is our confessional standard.
That's right. That's right. So we can just go straight to chapter 23. And of course, most people in our circles know that the American Presbyterians revised this chapter. But the interesting thing is that, and there's debates we can have about, what do the revisions mean? What do they don't mean? But one thing they definitely mean is that the government has to keep this from happening. What happened yesterday in Minnesota, the government has a duty before God to stop it. And the Lord has given the government the sword for this purpose. So we can look at chapter 23, section 2. So this is what it says. It's lawful for Christians to accept and execute the office of a magistrate when called thereunto. Listen to this. In the managing whereof, as they ought especially to maintain piety, justice, and peace, according to the wholesome laws of each commonwealth. So for that end, they may lawfully, now under the New Testament, wage war upon just and necessary occasion. What does that mean? It means the duty of the magistrate, first and foremost, to maintain the piety of the people, is such a high priority that even Christians serving as the magistrate may wage war for the sake of maintaining the piety of the people. If that can justify a war, it can certainly justify police presence to stop people from ceasing the practice of piety. Which, I mean, if the word piety means anything, it means you're going to church and worshiping, right? So we have it there. You want me to keep going, or do you have any comments on that one? Because there's more.
No, let's hear more. Go more.
All right, so let's keep going. So this is section 3, the second sentence. It says, as nursing fathers, that's a quote from Isaiah 49:23.
Yeah.
As nursing fathers.
Wait a minute, James. Though, where does it say that in the New Testament? Where does Paul say that? We don't use Isaiah. I was told we're supposed to use the New Testament.
Yeah, we're.
So, I'm sorry. Sorry. I'm being. Yeah.
Well, no. Here, I'll tell you where he says.
No,
it.
I know. Go ahead.
No. I'm popping off now. I'll tell you where he says it. He says it in Romans 13.
Yes.
When Paul says that the civil magistrate, the civil servant, the vicar of God, which is another way to say it, right, is there to be an avenger, the God's avenger against wrongdoers, he has in mind people who are persecuting the church. Because God gets to define what good and evil is, and it's good to support the church, and it's evil to harass it, and therefore the government has the duty to wield the sword as God's avenger against people who would persecute his church.
There you go. But I was being facetious because the point is our standards are quoting the Old Testament, and so when these supposed Reformed, stalwarts say those things to us, it's like stop telling me you're just doing what the standards are saying, because the standards are quoting the Old Testament.
Yeah, it turns out the Old Testament has a civil use. Who would have thought? So as nursing fathers, it's the duty of civil magistrates to protect the church of our common Lord. Now, what that means in particular would be other Protestant churches for the early Americans. Because there's a debate whether or not the Catholic Church is a true church. But other Protestant churches, Baptist churches, maybe even, Anabaptist assemblies, they count them as the church of our common Lord. Then listen to this. Without giving the preference to any denomination of Christians above the rest, so you can't just protect the Presbyterian Church and not the Anglican Church, in such a manner that all ecclesiastical persons whatsoever shall enjoy the full, free, and unquestioned liberty of discharging every part of their sacred functions without violence or danger. And the pastor, whose name is Jonathan Parnell, was not able to discharge his sacred functions yesterday because he was interrupted by a mob. Then later on you can read, listen to this.
Facilitated by the media.
Facilitated by the media. We should talk about that. And then this section ends with this. And the magistrate ought to take order that all religious and ecclesiastical assemblies be held without molestation or disturbance. Our standards couldn't speak any clearer. the government needs to stop what happened yesterday from ever happening again.
Yes, and this is why, honestly, like this is not a joking matter. And
No.
anybody that's been a pastor or an officer in the Church of Jesus Christ, like if that happened at the church that I was pastoring in North Carolina, my soul would be grieved. This is the moment when, I am facilitating, helping the congregation, come together and receive the ordinary means of grace, be before the throne of God as his congregated people. And there's an analogy here to the what happened in was it the Maccabean revolt when they brought in what'd they do, sacrifice a pig inside the temple or something? It's like, this is a desecration of the highest degree. And that's why it is completely inflammatory for an elder in the Church of Jesus Christ, D.G. Hart, professor at Hillsdale and OPC elder, to make light of this put your name. I mean, he had this tweet saying, "This is me," with the video of it happening with the pastor there that just had composure, but I can see the grief in grieving in his face. And Hart says, "This is me going into James Baird's church." It's like, this is not a time to mock when Christians are being molested and worship of the true God. Like, the R2K guys are supposed to be the guys that uphold the ordinary means of grace and put that, sort of above everything else. And they're the stalwarts of this. And he's using it as a meme and a mockery of both your position and what's going on. And that could have really turned, separately, civilly, it could have really turned violent. I mean, we saw all this is kicked off.
It's an inch away from being violent in Minneapolis.
Of course. Right. I mean, we already saw that. Did that woman deserve to die? I don't believe she deserved to die, but she put herself in a position in harm's way. I mean, well, that's what this riot could have done. Because I'll tell you this, if that had happened in the church I pastored in North Carolina, a church in the 300s, I would guess there's probably 30 guns in the church on any given. I mean, it's rural North Carolina, and these are God-fearing people, but they believe in their Second Amendment right to carry. We had a security team. First of all, it never would have happened for that reason, because the Second Amendment, they never would have gotten in the church. I'm not suggesting they would open fire on these people, but that's why these people don't go into churches that protect themselves and have adequate security and we had a sheriff that we had contacted over. He says, "Oh yeah, I protect the church," and we had him on speed dial, and he was willing.
Listen, here's the problem. Here's what's actually going on, and Christians need to open up their eyes. Can we please? This is my plea. Can we please stop debating about Christian nationalism? Seriously, let's just stop. Let's talk about our different views of the civil magistrate. That's fine, but I think what people need to realize is that there are real enemies of the church, and they don't care about whether or not you take the label Christian nationalist.
That's right.
All that they care about is whether or not your church will be on board with their political agenda. And if you're not, they will start disturbing your worship services for a purpose. You know what that purpose is? To bait you and hope that they'll have another martyr. It couldn't be clearer in Minneapolis right now. And this is a playbook that's going to start to be rolled out across the U.S., wherever you live. They are going to try to put you in the worst possible scenario so that you're forced in self-defense to do something, and then they can use that as a just cause to come against you and any other normal, average Orthodox Christian who isn't opposing ICE or Trump or whatever.
Yeah.
That's just what's happening right now.
That's it. So we wanted this to be short. I think we said a lot there. Is there any thoughts you have on churches? And by the way, I appreciate the appeal to stop arguing over Christian nationalism when CNN considers basically anybody who's a Christian nationalist. So
now I'm not saying that there aren't things we need to continue to critique.
No, of course.
Against,
right. But separately, again, like for churches, what are some thoughts you have on how churches can help be aware of this? I mean, we spoke to a pastor today, you and I, who is in Minnesota, and he is thinking through, because he believes that this could happen in his church given the town he's in and what's going on there. So what are some thoughts you have? I definitely have some, but go for it.
The first one is continue your McShane Bible reading program, because the truth is the only way that your soul is going to be prepared for a moment like that is if it is constantly steeped in the Word and prayer. Seriously, I do not mean that.
No, I know you don't.
I don't mean that flippantly. I'm serious. There's a high or non-zero chance you're going to be put in the worst imaginable situation, and your soul needs to be right with God. It really does. That's the first thing I'd say. Second,
let me just piggyback on that. Not only does your soul need to be right with God, and you already indicated this a little bit, but like when you're in the Word and when you're in prayer, it grounds you to realities and helps you respond in more healthy ways. And we need level-headed responses. Firm responses, yes. Absolutely. Protective responses, yes, but level-headed responses. And, I even find myself, like when I'm on social media and some of this nonsense is going on and I see a certain tweet or whatever, it agitates me and it affects how I'm responding to others. So in other words, being in the Word gives you level responses and measured responses because the peace of Christ is residing in your heart. Being agitated over nonsense debates will create agitation in the real world.
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
So,
yeah, the reason is, when you read the Psalms, David's constantly saying, Lord, keep my feet from slipping. Keep my feet from slipping. And the idea there is that David is a millimeter away from doing the wrong thing. And a tiny little slip could be deadly. And pastors in America increasingly are going to be put in situations like that, where there is a millimeter difference between when you should and should not use force. There's going to be a millimeter difference between you not protecting your flock, right, and you giving the ammunition to the left that they want.
That's right.
And the enemies of the church what they want. And the only one who's going to be able to help you in that scenario is the Holy Spirit. So that's the first thing I'd say. Second one is I'd say get in the gym. You need to be putting on mass. Be like George.
Not be like George.
Be like George. Seriously, get in the gym.
I got OG strength, man.
One of the reasons is that God. You got OG strength.
That's what I tell my kids. Anyway, because they're stronger than me now and they can beat me in basketball, but I got OG strength.
You got OG strength. The reason is that you need to be using all of the spiritual and natural means that you can to protect your people. And I don't think that in 3 weeks you're going to be dramatically stronger than you are today. But I tell you what, your testosterone levels will be higher. And God gave men testosterone for a reason. It helps them regulate their emotions. It helps them be sharper in moments of crisis. And you need higher T levels, Pastor, to do your job well. It's just how it is, honestly.
Yeah. And there's supplements that can help with this. Even creatine helps with it. But man, by the way, I did an episode on Grace at the Gates at the end of last year. It's just 2 episodes ago where I give you 5 tips for this because I've had to go through this in my middle-aged years, and it's been a game changer. So,
and the next one I'd say is to go talk to your session and your diaconate right now. What's your plan? Something happens, what's your plan? And you need to have that plan in place, and you need to know how to operationalize it in a moment's notice. Then not just the use of force, but how do you remove
de-escalate?
De-escalate, absolutely. How do you de-escalate? Who do you call? How fast can they get there? Look at vulnerabilities on your property, and keep your eyes open on stuff that's happening in your area. Or have someone, maybe it's not you, Pastor, maybe it's a deacon, right?
I definitely would pass this, empower the diaconate in this, but the session has the overall responsibility. But let the deacons do the work on it. Yeah,
that's right. I think that's my advice. What would you add?
Yeah, I would add. So if your church doesn't have a security team, security teams are funny. I've seen this in 2 churches I pastored. Like there does get to be like an elevated sense of importance about being on it, and we need to protect against that, and we don't want a bunch of Barney Fifes in there. So if you do have but I do think churches need their own security team, and that doesn't mean a bunch of armed people that don't understand how to use firearms. It's people who are patrolling, people who have radios, people who know what to look for, people who are trained, and your local sheriff's department will usually come in and train your group. They'll even look at your facility and talk about vulnerabilities. They'll talk about things you need to watch out for. When I was at Meadowview, the diaconate had, I don't know, they installed them. They installed, I don't know how many, with 20 cameras, a command station to view them, radios for the deacons. And here's the thing. The difference between the Barney Fife and the just well-educated, well-trained security person is the Barney Fife wants something to happen, and they want to deal with it. The other people are looking to deter and de-escalate. And these are some of the strongest, most regimented guys you know. They want to deter and de-escalate.
Yep.
And that's what you want.
I'd say, Pastor, you probably can't put together a security team by Sunday, okay? But you can do 3 things, and you should do it today, okay? First one is see if your local police will send an officer to your church.
Well, that's good.
Right? See if your local police will send an officer to your church. Number 2, get radios. Just get radios and assign people. 2, 3, 4, 5, right? At different doors. Number 3, go online and find a first aid course. It won't cost you any money on how to deal with gunshot wounds, and go out and buy bleed stop, chest seals, and tourniquets. And each of the guys with the radio has a few of each of those things. Do that by Sunday. You don't have to learn how to use a firearm. It actually takes a ton of time on the range to be good with a firearm. You may or may not have a person in your congregation that has that experience and is responsible. But anyone can learn first aid. Anyone can learn how to use a radio, and your sheriff's department can send someone.
Yeah, definitely. And, it doesn't cost that much money to have an off-duty police officer in a cruiser sitting in your parking lot. And this is the deal. Again, places where there are deterrents, they're going to go to soft targets. They're not going to go to the places that have...
That's right.
In general, again, there's a lot of these things are, sort of professionally coordinated, and they're looking for conflict with law enforcement. But... a mob of people shouldn't be able to get into your building. And by the way, I'm not in favor of locking the church doors. And when I would see that at my own church, it would upset me. And I think the church doors need to be open. And but that doesn't mean every door. And and some people need to be monitoring them and stuff like that. And be in prayer. And by the way, that goes back to James' first point. But this is a great way to engage your congregation. Like if you have doctors and nurses in the congregation, I'm not saying create fear in them or anything. Just let them know. Like, hey, are you, we had people had a heart attack. Well, we thought they had a heart attack. They passed out. But it's happened twice. And it was always a doctor. Actually, we had a couple doctors and a couple nurses that would run over. And when we'd see them be involved, it would be great, but have them have a plan for just, again, it could be a medical crisis in your church, but in case of these kinds of things too, you want to know who to rely on. So we're not omnicompetent, but the body of Christ has all the gifts usually that are needed. So,
Yep, that's right.
Well, good deal, James. This is a great conversation and a timely one. And we just need to be in prayer for our nation and to be aware and to be wise as serpents, gentle as doves. This is James Baird and George Sayour for Covenant Matters. Thanks for watching.
The Steadfast Legacy Sumatra is a bold cigar with a nice balance of spice, leather, and dried fruit. You can find these and all our other premium cigars at steadfastcigars.com. Use promo code Covenant10 for 10% off your order. Remain steadfast and hold the line.